All right, welcome everybody, and welcome to episode 24 of Uncertainty and Probability Theory, the Logic of Science. This week we're going to introduce the topic of randomness. We're not going to finish it by far. I'm just going to introduce it to you. There's not any math involved, there's not any pictures, it's just a discussion of what this randomness means. And it's such a nice day. Climate change is producing these absolutely gorgeous fall days, and it's a sin to be inside. So I came outside here where the squirrels, the two red squirrels and a chipmunk are fighting over the nuts I'm giving them. Maybe they'll make an appearance, maybe they won't, we'll see. You'll hear them fighting in a minute. So we're going to be starting on chapter 6 of Uncertainty. We've just did a few weeks showing you some of the math involved in understanding some of these probability things, and it's very necessary to get through that kind of a thing. But the important thing for us is always the philosophy. Now I want to warn you guys, a lot of you guys somehow, especially on YouTube, recommends this video out to people, and they've not seen any of the earlier ones. And some of the stuff we say I don't introduce anymore, we just begin from wherever we left off the last time. And so that could lead to some confusion. So I urge you to go back and at least, if you don't want to watch all the old videos, it's a lot of time, you can go back and read the lectures and read the book excerpts and things like this. That'll clear up a lot of confusion I think a lot of people have on some of these things. Intuition, as I've talked about, you'll see if you go back to the beginning, can lead us a great distance, but sometimes can mislead us. Intuition provides our deepest forms of knowledge. Our deepest forms of knowledge come by faith and so forth. On propositions, what I mean by that, on propositions for which there can be no empirical verification, yet we believe are true, and therefore we can only believe based on faith and act. And all that is provided by certain forms of intuition. And to discover the various kinds of intuition and everything, induction and so forth, you have to go back and read those earlier excerpts or watch those earlier videos or something like this. We're already 24 weeks into this thing, half a year already, 6 months of this. So almost 6 months of this stuff. So you have to go back and look at all this stuff. So I'm going to be reading bits and pieces from Uncertainty here and going through it just to give us a flavor of what randomness is and what randomness isn't. Randomness is purely an epistemological concept. It is purely a measure of unknownness. Randomness does not inhere in anything, neither does chance. Chance and randomness only speak of our states of knowledge, and they say nothing ontologically. They say nothing about actual physical objects. There is some confusion on this. Some people believe that some physical objects are imbued with a certain form of chance or randomness, that we need to conduct randomized controlled trials to bless them in some sense. All of this is false, and I hope to prove it to you over the next few weeks, and of course over the entire course of this lecture. You'll have to forgive me, I have to finish this cigar. I should have quit before I started. Now, it's always a mistake to say things like, I'm going to read some of these things. You'll read in science things like this all the time. The results are due to chance, or they were not due to chance. They were caused by random chance, or they had random chance mutations. These results are significant and not due to chance. These results are no different than chance. These results are explainable by chance. Random effects, random variables, random numbers. We can only use random samples. All this stuff is wrong. It's absolutely wrong. I differ from a lot of my colleagues, I understand that, but that's because they start with the math and they haven't thought about the philosophy very much. And like I said a million times, the math is fine. There's nothing wrong with the math. The math is, it's very rare for mathematicians to make mistakes on things. But what's wrong is, I guess I'm out here. I'll let this set down. When you apply that math to things, that's when the philosophy enters and we can't get away from it. Now, all this holds for quantum mechanics too and everything, as I'll prove to you. So random has a lot of meanings. Its original meaning was kind of like a haphazard route, haphazard, a hazard. We hear of hazard functions, the games of hazard, happenstance, a hap, a mishap. All of these are sort of chance related topics and randomness type of topics. Random originally meant, it was used in ballistics, and it described not so much the path of the missile, but where its distance, how far it would go. The distance was caused to be random. And in all these things, and all these uses that we have, they all boil down to one thing. We don't know the cause of the event that we are witnessing. And I guess I left it inside the shack like an idiot. I'll have to fake it here, okay? You won't see me do this. Pretend you didn't see me this here. All right, so I'm gonna prove this to you. I hope it's gonna be proven to you. Now, I have in my right hand, this hand here, or my left hand, a peanut. You have to guess which it is. Now, given this information, if you've been following along the lectures, you should be able to calculate the probability it's in my right hand or my left hand. The probability, given it must be in one of these two hands, accepting that, and it is only in one of those, the probability is a half that it's in the right, and the probability that it's a half that it's in the left. That probability works for you. To you, the outcome is random. You don't know what it is because you don't have enough information. I, on the other hand, have perfect information. I know exactly where it is. My conditioning information is different than yours. Therefore, the event to me is not random. There's no randomness in this physical activity. This event had a cause in all its form. And we're going to talk about cause in a couple of weeks. I think I just gave it away where it is. It is, in fact, in my right hand. I stole it from one of the squirrels. So random is purely a matter of information, and that's it. It means unknown cause. We don't know the cause, or we cannot determine the answer to a specific problem. We can't determine whether a proposition of interest is true or whether it is false. Determine has two meanings in English. It could be in the epistemological sense, we can't know the means of, or determine can mean to cause. And so this is fine, but when we use this word in science, it can very quickly lead to the fallacy of equivocation. When we use determined by its epistemological meaning to know the determination of, and then swap it in for the causal notion to say something was due to or caused by chance. To due to chance means caused by, and chance has no causal powers. Randomness has no causal powers. You can't take a thing and subtract from it or measure from it its amount of randomness, but it's treated as if it's a power of some kind, almost like it's a mystical power. Nobody quite knows exactly how it works, like it's a field surrounding certain items, particularly in quantum mechanics, that gives them a certain propensity to do one thing or the other. And this just isn't the case. So we have to be very careful about this. Now, we often speak of events of chance and events of hazards, and that's like in casino games and the like, particularly like craps or something, where you're throwing dice and adding up the total and so forth. And the reason we speak of chance in these is, again, we don't know the cause. I've built, and I've talked about on this class before with my dad last year, a coin flipping machine. Stick the coin in there, you press the button, and the coin flips through the air, lands, and it's always heads. Every single time it's heads. And the reason is because I control all the relevant causes. I control not just the causes, but also the conditions which allow these causes to eventuate. The substances, the exercise, the powers that they have. So this machine, you flip the thing, flip, the coin flips around, the quarter flips around. I don't think it'll work with another coin. I haven't tried it with a dime or a nickel or anything like that. But it works for the quarter. So there's no more randomness left in the machine, because the randomness only meant unpredictability in that first sense of determined. I'm able to control all of the causes. Therefore, I know the causes. Therefore, the event is not random. But there are times we want to use this unpredictability. We want to use randomness as a synonym of unpredictability or unknown cause. But it's more general to say unknown, rather unpredictability. So I'm going to read you a little excerpt here. This is from a classic work, not mine. So they proposed two, Joseph and Barsabbas, who is also known as Justus, and Matthias. Then they prayed, "You, Lord, who know the hearts of all, show which one of these two you have chosen to take the place in this apostolic ministry from which Judas turned away to go to his own place." End quote. Then they gave lots to them, and the lot fell upon Matthias, and he was counted with the 11 apostles. This is from Acts 1, 23, 26. The apostles, missing one, Judas went off to become a frequentist and left them with 11. They wanted to have their original 12, which is a good anti-prime number, a highly composite number, 12. And so in order to pick the apostle, without relying on politics, they asked God to let it be the result of these lots, casting lots. We can think of this like tossing dice or something like this. And it's a very interesting thing. It's fascinating when you think about it. So controlling dice and being able to throw them, for instance, it can be done, but it's very extremely difficult. And that's why at casinos and everything, they provide you with dice that have rigidly sharp edges, and the dice have to fly down the table. They have to hit a back wall, which generally has maybe have bumps on it or something like this. It makes all of the causes and conditions very difficult to predict and to control without cheating. Of course, you can always cheat. One can have weighted dice and the like, but again, you're controlling the causes when you're doing that. So, but with these lots here, what are we asking to do? So I'll contrast it with these in Buddhist temples. And I don't have these things on me to show anymore. I did a video on this years ago. I think my Chinese pronunciation is going to be awful. Boabui. I know I'm saying it wrong. These are two wooden crescent-shaped objects, usually painted red. And they're asymmetric. One side is flat, the bottom side of the moon. And they're just like a half moon, a quarter moon, something like this. And what you do is you take these two things and you ask the local gods of the temple a question, which will be answered yes or no, and you throw the boabui down, and they bounce around a little bit, and they land. It'll be one will be up and one will be down, or one will be up and one will be down. And I think that's yes. And then both will be up or both will be down, and I think that's no. I might have these inverted. But what are we asking to do here? We're asking the God to intervene in this particular situation in which we know that the results are sensitive to initial conditions. Sensitivity to initial conditions we can mathematically model in a field of science called chaos. And all of that is simple, dynamical, perfectly deterministic in the first sense of we know the values of equations, that we know the answers perfectly. If we know the perfect starting point, if we know the initial conditions, we can predict into perpetuity. But if you change the initial conditions of some certain mathematical equations, just the tiniest little bit, just a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction, the results can diverge wildly. And this is called chaos. And it's the same kind of thing when we're throwing these randomizers. You could try this in yourself. Try to get a die or a pair of dice, and put them in your hand, and so that you try to match them the same way. So all the pips are pointing one particular direction every single time. You have them in your hand in exactly the same spots, as close as you can get it, and try to drop them onto the same kind of surface from the same height using the same motion. And you'll find you can't do it. It's not going to work. You're not going to get the same dice total every time. And that's because these causes are very sensitive to initial conditions. But the causes, if we could control them, as in the coin flipping machine, why then we could know exactly what we're going to get every time. And I tried a few times with the coin flipping machine to modify it with a single die. I haven't got it to work yet because I had some sloppy die that have these rounded edges that kept falling off. So I'll work on that, and I think I can perfect that to show you that even die throws can be controlled. So let's get back to these gods. We're asking a question. We want the question to be yes or no, depending on the sides that are up. And what are we asking? We're asking for very minimal effort on the part of the god. Think about this. I could just put these objects, these bobway down, or the lots in the case of the apostles. I could just put the lots down, and I can ask God, or I can ask one of the gods of the temple. I could say, select, like a spin the bottle for the apostles. I can just have a bottle sitting there and say, Lord, we don't know which of us should be the next apostle. Have the bottle point to the apostle that you want. And God, of course, God can do this. He's all powerful. There's no difficulty with him doing this. But that's not what they did. They did that randomization thing where like a referee at a football game when they're flipping the coin, making the choice completely out of human control. And that's what they were doing. And in this case, they have an apostle, a successor picked, in which there could be no acrimony because so-and-so and so-and-so voted for Matthias and the other guys voted for Justice or Barabbas, whatever his name was. And so there'd be political factions and splits and all this kind of a thing. We didn't want to do that, or they didn't want to do that. I wasn't there. But they still needed to make a choice. And they made a choice by letting the unpredictable nature of it. They've already honed it down to two. They already knew who both candidates could be viable. And it's just like in a football game, both sides are eligible to win the kickoff or decide if they want to kick, whatever it is. But we've removed the choice from human consideration because we know we can't control these causes. But that's not the case in with the bobway. We could just, again, we could set these two moons down, we could have them on the floor, and we could ask the god, okay, flip one over or not in the next whatever period of time. And the gods should be powerful enough to do this and to make the choice. But we don't do that. We don't do that. That's asking quite a lot. It's a lot of work to pick up one of these things, even from the spirit world, one presumes, and flip it over. Well, we're asking for very tiny, minute, almost, quantum mechanical perturbations when these things are in flight and hit the ground and hit the floor and so forth. And that bears a lot of thinking. So randomness is put down to a cause, but in this case, that cause is not inherent in the magical items. They're inherent in the gods who are thought to be controlling these things. So even there we can't escape the notion that something is making the final cause happen. This escapes us when we start talking about quantum mechanics. People think because Bell's theorem has proved there can be no such controlling case, then there must be complete randomness in the world, but that's not true. That's not at all what Bell's theorem proves. Bell's theorem either says we reject locality, or we reject these other variables that might be controlling or causing things. Well, if we just reject locality in ways that can be done, like we've discussed on my blog and other articles, like the way Wolfgang Smith and others speak of, we can certainly get away by rejecting locality and restoring sensibility to quantum mechanics and so forth. Well, we'll talk more about quantum. I don't want to make this about quantum mechanics per se in this particular thing, but we'll get to that. But I think it's fascinating to think that we're always asking for cause. We can't get away from cause. We know the cause is there, but we're either putting the cause to some mysterious God, or if you're in physics and so forth, your cause is still a mysterious entity. It's the universe doing something. Or if you're a Christian, God is the ultimate cause. So we can never escape it. We can never escape it. And then if you're asking questions about what causes those gods to do things, well, you come down that metaphysical path, which we're not going to go down today. But we are going to talk about cause again later, so we'll venture down that metaphysical path. Now, in statistics and so forth, they'll often have models. They'll have a model for some observable thing like income, somebody's income, or sets of people's incomes. And they'll say the income is a function of these particular measures and some random error. And some random error. And these people will then go to try to find the true values of this random error so they can accept or reject hypotheses of these other variables that are in their model, these other measures that are in the model. Whereas a second guy who's got the same data and so forth, I did this in my Hillsdale talk, they come up with a completely different model. And for him now, all of a sudden, the true values that inhere in these random mathematical objects have completely different residuals, have completely different epsilons in them. We're going to go over it. If you don't worry about it, if you don't understand what this means, I'm going to go over this in nauseating detail when we start writing up these models and so forth in a mathematical form. But the point of it is, two people can have exactly the same data. They can come to different models just because of their different backgrounds. That's no problem from a logical probability standpoint. You change the assumptions, you change the premises, you change the probability. No problem. There is no true value. The true value is only with respect to the evidence that you assume. Whereas for some Bayesians and some and all frequentists, they believe there is a true value. But every time you change the model, make a tweak to the model, add a new measure in or something like this, the model changes and therefore the true values change. So that's an absurdity if you think about it. You can't control true values of random parameters and so forth if you do this. Well, I think I did that enough. Chance is mostly a synonym of randomness, but not always. It is so in statistical models and so forth. And like I say, we're going to come to discussions of randomized controlled trials and why I don't think they are necessary, except for, I'll give you the sneak peek of this, the same reason the apostles threw their lots or the umpires are flipping the quarter, to remove the possibility of cheating, even self-cheating, from some experiments. That's what they're good for. It's not for imbuing in the results some mystical random nature, which therefore makes our probabilistic deductions from them valid or something. That's the frequentist theory. Like I said last time or 2 times ago, whatever it was, there are people who call themselves frequentists, but nobody sticks to the theory. Nobody. They immediately change into like subjective Bayesians almost when they're using the theories. Nobody can maintain frequentism consistently, and nor do they try. And what was the other point that I wanted to make? The probability information changes. Yes. This leads to, and we're not going to do this today. This is the other sneak peek. Simulations. Simulations. We need to have random number generators to do simulations. Back in the old days, Rand Corporation, good pun, a lot of laughter, I hear it, published tables of random numbers. What is a random number? What does a random number mean to us right now? It means we just don't know what the number is going to be. We can't predict what the next random number is going to be given the ones before. That's all that means. That and nothing more, because we don't know the causes of the random numbers. Of course, in a lot of computers, you have pseudo-random number generators that are taken as random numbers in order to feed into these simulations. And that they need to be that way, not to make the simulations work and to get answers which are reasonable. They do this. I'm not saying they don't. But I'm saying the interpretation is completely bonkers, that they need to be random so that we can interpret the numbers as probabilities at the end, only if we can imagine them embedded in this infinite sequence of blah, 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 like we did when I showed you that probability was not limiting relative frequency. There's nothing wrong with using simulations except that we'll learn there's almost always going to be analytic methods or numerical approximations that are faster and probably better. And that's an ongoing area of research and all this kind of a thing. But we need to understand what we're doing with them. We're not mimicking nature. Nature doesn't draw from probability distributions. You'll hear this. Nature randomly draws from probability distribution. Again, we've given nature a deity-like essence, just like the gods in the Buddhist temples. That's exactly what it is if nature is drawing from probability distributions. But that's not how things really work. And we'll talk more about that when we talk more about cause. So I think next time we're going to go into chance more. Chance is only partly a synonym of randomness. It has all kinds of deeper meanings, and we need to understand exactly what they are. Some of which are useful, some of which are easy to mix up, especially when we start talking about coincidences. And I've done some work on the blog. You can go back, not in the class, but other than that, looking at coincidences and trying to think about coincidences, what do we mean by them and so forth. So I'll probably have a coincidence lecture. I've got some plots made up and so forth in order to do that. But that's it for now. I'm going to post an excerpt of this chapter from my book online. All the information will be below. You can go and read that. That'll be your homework. And if you can, try to find, just go to scholar.google.com and type in due to chance. Due, D-U-E-T-O, chance. You can put that in quotes. And I'm just guessing you're going to find lots and lots and lots and lots of scientific peer-reviewed papers that use this phrase. And I can't promise you every single one of them use it incorrectly, because maybe you run across one of my papers. But almost all of them will be wrong. They have the wrong idea. And so we're going to find out why it's so crucial we get this right, because of the rampant overcertainty that's present in science and the misascription of cause, because we tend to either put things down to the thing we think of or due to chance. And that's just not right. That's it for now. More is below. Thanks for listening on such a beautiful day out here. I didn't need a chalkboard. Maybe next time I don't need a chalkboard either, and the weather will hold up. Thanks very much.